Usually the setting is Hollywood or New York. Seldom is it Virginia Beach. Tonight, Terry Zahn begins a special three-part series on a local rock and roll band that may be on the verge of that big break. Here's part one of Band on the Run.
A research project discovered that month that the Beatles invaded America and forever changed popular music. It is still changing, of course, and every band hopes that its particular sound will be the next one to catch on. This week, Terry Zahn and photographer Mike Ridge are looking at a local rock band that's working hard, hoping to get noticed. Here's part two of Band on the Run.
One thing every rock group seeks is wider public exposure, and in early February, a break for Channel 1. They're the opening act for British rock star Adam Ant at the Hampton Coliseum.
Where's Jeff at? Jeff!
Backstage, there are cold cuts and cheese and tension. It's only what's called a half house, but still it will be a big audience. A good chance for the band to show its stuff. For Channel 1, this is one more step up in a very tough business which demands commitment.
It's been musicians since the time I was in high school, and I missed my graduation and played at the Peppermint Beach Club.
When you decide you're going to go for it and you give up the security of a steady weekly paycheck, you know, you really have to be ready for a lot of sacrifices.
After this concert, it's load up the van time and head for another, the regular date at the beach. Bill Gaunce once worked for the phone company. He fell off a building. He also drove a cab and was robbed. That's when he says he decided to try music full-time. Then followed a series of bands, including one with no name that was thrown together in a week to play at a Florida club. Its first performance was awful.
Afterwards, we were sitting around. We didn't have a name when we went down there, and we thought, you know, this band is a real turkey. And we looked at each other and said, well, we have a name now.
But some of those turkey veterans wound up in Snuff, a well-respected local band with 2 albums for Warner Brothers Elektra. They heard Channel 1's tape on K94 radio, and that led to another break. Snuff's manager.
Robbie House from Snuff had told me that he was listening to the radio one day and heard this song by Channel 1, which was a local group on K94 called That Dress. He said it sounded as professional as anything he's heard. And
he listened and liked it too.
It's a contemporary sound. It's a hit sound.
Herbert has been knocking around the music business for 12 years. He also does record promotion right now for a new Australian group called Real Life. While in New York, he got to know John Belushi and a lot of other people. He was so impressed by Channel 1 that he sent their tape to his record company contacts in California. 3 hours after they got it, another break. The firm called to say it would finance a return to the studio for a full audition.
Now, when you think of a recording studio, you probably think of one of the huge facilities in California or New York or maybe the French chateau that Elton John used to use. What you don't think of is a concrete block building behind a shopping center on Witch Duck Road.
But inside, everything needed to cut a high-quality tape. That story tomorrow. I'm Terry Zahn, The Daily News.
On their way to success.
Musicians have their way. You'll be able to find Channel 1 on your radio. All this week, Terry Zahn has told us about the group that calls itself Channel 1 and its attempts to make it in the recording business. Tonight, in the last part of his series, Band on the Run, Terry tells us the group is close to realizing that dream.
It almost sounds like bells as it is. Any kind of effect or anything we can do to make it sound more like bells? A little reverb. Okay.
This is what's called a mixdown session. Channel 1 has already recorded 5 songs on a 16-channel tape. Each channel may contain only one voice or instrument. Now, engineer Alan Sawyer and the group balance each sound in relation to the others. The final tape went to a California record label that expressed interest in the group and financed the recording session. It's owned by Mike Kerr. You may have heard that name before. At Daytona, he sponsored Richard Petty's car. He's been Lieutenant Governor of California, and when he was 24, president of MGM Records. The man who listened to the tape was producer Phil Gernhard.
Now, unless you're fond of reading the small print on record labels, you probably don't know Phil Gernhard, but he knows you. At least he knows what you buy when you go into a record store. He produced the first 2 Snuff albums and has a long list of hits from the 60s and the 70s.
Check your records. You probably have some of them.
Just let your love flow like a mountain stream and let your love grow. Me and you and a dog named Blue, traveling and living off the land. Abraham and Martin and John.
When Gernhard listened to the tape from Channel 1, he liked what he heard.
They've still got some work to do in the material area, but they do write well.
It sounds like you're pretty impressed with them. How do they stack up compared with some of the other groups that you may have been listening to recently?
That's one of the most interesting groups I've heard, I'd say, in the last 2 or 3 years.
But there are a lot of good groups. Ron Herbert, who manages another local group, Snuff, sent the tape to Gernhard and says he probably gets 15 a week. And even if they do record, the chances for success?
1 in a million.
It's still a long way from Virginia Beach to a California record label. And if the contract doesn't come, what then?
Well, first of all, the record contract is going to come. But, so I can't say it's not going to come because it is going to come, you know.
If we don't get that, we definitely will go ahead and do what a lot of groups who have done and end up going to the top doing that way. Like the Police, you'd end up doing your own record album.
Maybe they'll take me back to the telephone company. I don't know.
In the end, you may have to come back here to the club to see Channel 1. Or it could be they'll wind up in record stores everywhere on an album cover. I'm Terry Zahn, The Daily News.
Well, positive thinking must work, I guess. Just last week, MCA Records in Los Angeles offered Channel 1 a contract. The band is still negotiating the offer, but if it's accepted, Channel 1 could record an album by this April and have its first single released nationwide. We wish the band luck and want to thank photographer Mike Ridge for the fine job of shooting and editing that series. Coming up...
Neighborhood. That story and more covered in our Hampton Roads.